Hey everyone, Kevin here from River City Graphics. Today I'm going to be showing you how to take a 2D Illustrator file and export that to After Effects and create a sweet 3D animation. So let's get started. Alright, so the first thing that we need to do for this tutorial is to actually create something in Adobe Illustrator. So I've created this basically bullseye, just simple illustration right here. It's basically a stroked path, and then I have a circle in the center for the bullseye. So what you need to do when you're creating objects and illustrations within Illustrator to export to After Effects is make sure that each of your elements that you're going to want to be able to select later on in After Effects is on its own separate layer. So if we go over to my layers panel here in Illustrator, you'll see that both of my objects are on the same layer. You can see right here we have layer 1, and I have my path 1 and path 2, which one of them is my red ring, and then the other one is the blue center. Now this isn't going to work because over in After Effects it's going to take both of these and keep them on the same layer, so I'm going to be able to select all of it at once but not each individual piece. So in order to split that up, I'm just going to select the blue center, hit Control X to cut it, create a new layer by clicking this Create New Layer button, and then I'm going to hit Control Shift V to paste in place. So now we have each element on its own separate layer, and we'll be able to basically address each of those separately within After Effects. So if you have a lot of different elements and a lot of different pieces to your objects and illustrations, it'll take you some time to actually cut and put each of those on its own layer, but it'll definitely save you some time and frustration once you get to the After Effects side. So now that we have finally done that, I'm just going to save this file. We're going to take and go over to After Effects. So open that up, and we'll create a new composition. There's going to be 1920 by 1080. Alright, so the first thing to do is to import our footage, or our illustration file. So I'm just going to double click over here in my project window. I'm going to find that. It was called bullseye.ai. Click open, and it's going to bring up this box right here. Now yours might be on footage, and you can see that it'll try and merge all the layers together. What we want is composition, so I'm going to take this import kind box and go down to composition, and we'll just leave the footage dimensions to layer size. So this will give us basically a composition with our layers in it, and it will give us the individual layers as well. So I'm just going to click OK. So now you can see that I have the bullseye and the bullseye layers right here. So now I can take and drag these two down into my timeline, and you'll see that we have drug out basically what we had over in Illustrator right there onto our After Effects timeline. Now I'm going to scale this up, and you'll see that it gets fuzzy. This is one of those little things in After Effects. In order to fix this, what you need to do is select each layer and then turn on the little sunshine icon right here to continuously rasterize that, and you'll see that it becomes crisp again, like you're used to seeing for Illustrator files. Alright, so now that we've finally gotten all that done, it's time to actually do some stuff here. So in my previous tutorial I talked about how you can do this same effect using text. Now there's a difference between text and Illustrator files within After Effects. Illustrator files you actually need to create a shape layer out of in order to take and create 3D extrusion on them. So I'll show you what I mean here. You'll see if we just open this up, as a default we have transform. Now I'm going to turn on 3D, and we need to turn off ray traced because this is what yours is going to look like. It'll probably say classic 3D up here. So you'll see transform and material options. Now you will be able to move this in 3D space, but you won't be able to get that extrusion like I showed in the preview. So you want to take your renderer and turn it to ray trace. Now if you didn't see what I did there, it's up in this top right corner just like we did in the text tutorial, and we'll take our renderer and select ray trace 3D, click OK, and you'll see now we get geometry options. Now in the text tutorial this was pretty much all we had to do, and we had all the options, we had the extrusion and everything in there. You'll see that those options are missing right now because we need to take and actually convert these Illustrator files into something that After Effects can recognize. So I'm just going to go ahead and close all that up, turn on 3D on this layer 2 as well, so both of these are now 3D layers. And what I'm going to do is select each of these individually. So I'm going to select layer 1, go to layer, and then down to create shapes from vector layer. Alright, now you'll see that it will turn off our AI file. You'll see that the eye is off, and it'll create this layer 1 outlines. So we need to do this for layer 2 as well, which is our blue center. So I'm going to say layer, create shapes from vector layer. Okay, so now we have basically 2 new layers and 2 layers that are turned off. Now, if you don't want to see these layers that are turned off, you can turn on your shy, which is basically this overall button right here, and then we can turn off the shy, which is the corresponding smaller icon on each layer, and you'll see that those disappear. And then in order to toggle them, you just turn on the master shy button. Alright, so now what we're actually ready to do is start taking and extruding these like we did for our text layers. So I'm going to take and just hit enter, and I believe that this is the blue center, so I'm going to hit enter and say blue center just so that we don't get confused, and this one is the red ring of death. Just kidding. Anyway, so moving on, what we're going to do is take and go to our geometry options. If you followed along with the text tutorial in basically one of my previous tutorials on this feature, then you're going to be able to go probably on from here without actually watching this. But if you haven't seen that video, then what you're probably going to want to follow along still. So I'm going to open up geometry options, and what we're looking for is extrusion depth. So I'm just going to take and turn that up to, say, probably about 75. Probably just type that in. And then I'm going to take the bevel depth, and we'll turn that up to probably about 5 or so. And then maybe we'll take and put on angular for the bevel style. Now you're not going to see anything different right now because we're looking at a straight on view. So we're also going to take and do this for our red ring. So I'm going to take the geometry options, turn this up to 75, and then we're going to turn bevel depth to 5 and bevel style to angular. Alright, so maybe we'll turn the bevel hole down to 0, just so that we don't get it encroaching on our center there. And we'll do the same thing for this one. Okay, so we can adjust these bevel depths later if you would like. Maybe we'll take and put it at like 3, just so that we don't get too close to the center there. Alright, so now we can't still see what we're doing. We need to actually add a camera so that we can orbit around these objects. So I'm going to go to Layer, New, Camera, and just click OK with the default settings. And then I'm also going to create a light in our scene. Now we can take and rotate this around if we wanted to. Right now I'm just going to grab my camera tool, and you can see that we have our nice 3D object created out of that 2D Illustrator file, which is really sweet. I'm really glad to see this feature finally come to After Effects. So what we need to do in order to actually see that better is to get some lights in here. So I'm going to go to Layer, New, and then Light. And I have the intensity at 178, the light type on Spotlight, cone angle 97, cone feather 50. Some of these are defaults, some of these aren't. The intensity I did turn up a little bit from default, and I also turned on cast shadows so that we can get some shadows within our circle cast from this blue center. So I'm going to click OK there, and now I can take and basically pull this off to the side like we did in our text tutorial, and we'll just aim the center point to the other side. Now this gives us some pretty harsh light coming from one side, so what I'm going to do is actually duplicate this light, so Control D, and now you can see that we have a really bright light, and what I'm going to do is basically move this over. I might need to zoom out a tad in order to see this. Try and get the light in the same spot on the other side, and then we'll shine this in from there. Now we probably need to move it back in space a little bit because it's still a little bit big, but for the purposes of this tutorial it's probably okay. So now you can see that we have basically a well lit object from both sides. Alright, so now what we can do is start tweaking everything else that we want to do. Basically we can take these and hit R on them, and if you have both of them selected, hit R, it's going to adjust both of the rotations at the same time. So now we can take our Y rotation. You can see our object here. It's actually turning out pretty cool. So that's pretty sweet. You can take and adjust your options so that you can change how this center object is affected by the outer object by changing around shadows and things like that. So we can take our blue center, open it up. I'm going to close up the transform, and we're going to look for material options. And now we can take and see cast shadows. We can basically turn that on so that it will cast shadows on the inside there if we want that. Can turn it back off. In order to not have that, you can turn on accepts lights, accept shadows, things like that, in order to really play around with how that center object is going to look, because a lot of times that can somehow get darked out because this other ring is basically casting a shadow on it. So you want to make sure that if this is for a logo or if this is for something where you need to see that center object, then you can play around with these material options to really pop out that center from the darkness and actually see it pretty well. So as far as the tutorial goes, I think that's probably about it. The main difference was actually needing to convert those layers to shape layers themselves. You can get some really intricate stuff going on here. I basically just made the bullseye and the center, so it doesn't really show too much what you can actually do with this, because you can create some really intricate illustrations, and I wasn't going to go into that because it would take forever to take and convert all those and animate them and get the lighting right and everything on that. But what you can do with this is really get some intricate illustrations, import those, and then do some really cool animations within After Effects. And so far, from what I've seen, it seems like After Effects can handle this pretty well on my computer, so it seems like it wouldn't take you too much rendering power in order to get these things to work right. So you can see that we have a pretty cool little animation going on here. You can take and still move each of these objects around. So if we wanted to take and move this out, you can see that we can have it like come flying in, sticks in the center, and then maybe this spins around and all kinds of stuff. So really the sandbox is opened up for you guys now that I've shown you this technique. So hope you enjoy this. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and comment. I do have a new tutorial coming out every week. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next week.